Alright guys, welcome to the next video. Now I am also sparing you guys the having to listen to me type. So again, I'm just going to copy and paste the information over. But the first bit of information that we're going to bring over is we need to tell HTML that our document is either an HTML5 document or above. Okay, so the way that we do that is we give it a doc type HTML. So we have to make sure that exclamation point is in there, and a doc type space HTML is there. So yours needs to look exactly as mine is on the screen. The only thing this is doing again is it's just telling the browser, hey, look out for a doc type HTML file. That's what's about to be created. The next thing that we want to do is we need to tell the browser, hey, that this is an HTML file. So this one I'm going to type in, and there's a reason I'm going to type it in. But we need to tell the browser that it's an HTML file. Okay, so now we're putting the HTML tag that says, hey, here is where the file is about to start. As we learned in class, with every open tag that we have, we must have a close. So we're going to return a couple of times. I'm going to go all the way down to line 10. And the difference between the open and the close tag is just that slash. So I'm going to put HTML down here. So now what we're telling the browser is, okay, HTML is going to start here, HTML will end here. Okay, that's all we've done so far. Seems like a little, but it's actually a lot. A lot has been done so far. Let me go to our file just so that we have it open. So if we refresh, and this is how you check your file in the browser, you just refresh it and it'll populate that file. So as I showed you in video 1, I showed you how to look at this file in the browser and how to open it. This is the best way to work, is to have your text editor to the left and have your browser to the right. Now some of you may have seriously small screens and you can't do that, but I'm just showing you the most efficient way to work is to have your text editor on the left and your browser on the right, and not to close the browser at all. Just go ahead and keep it open, because then all you have to do is refresh it and you can see your stuff happening to it as it's happening. Okay, so best way to work, this is that. All right, so the next thing that we want to do is we're going to bring in, so these HTML tags can stand up on their own, but there are things called attributes that we'll talk about more in detail later. But the first attribute that we're going to put in is this lang equals quote quote. Now, I'm going to pause here for a second just to tell you, an attribute extends the functionality of a tag. Okay, so by itself, this is an HTML tag. When we put this language tag in here, now it becomes an HTML tag with a certain language. And the language that we're going to use, of course, is going to be English. So it's just EN dash and then US. Okay. So we're saying, oh, well, this HTML document, not only is it an HTML document, but it's in the language of English in the United States. Okay. So now it extended the functionality of this tag. And like I said, we'll go over this in more detail later, but for now, I just wanted you to be able to see that. So the next one that we're going to do is our head tag. And again, where we have an open, we must have a close. So let's go ahead and put in our close head tag. I know that we're going to have information in between here, so I'm going to hit return a couple of times and then go ahead and put our close head tag. Remember, the difference between the open and the close is that slash, so make sure you have that in there. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do is inside of our head tag, we want to put some information inside of here. Like we want to say, oh, and also the information that goes in the head tag, it only pertains to the browser. The browser is the only one who reads this. The browser is the only thing who understands it at all. Okay, I just want to make sure that I put that out there. So the head tag, inside of the head tag, we can have meta tags. What meta tags do is they tell the browser some additional information. So meta tags look like this. Meta tags are cool. What's interesting about them is they're called self-closing tags. What that means is they do not have to have a closing tag. They just close in themselves. So there are quite a few self-closing tags, and we'll talk about those as we get to them. But just know that the reason that this one doesn't have an open and close is because it's a special tag, which is a self-closing tag. Now, inside of here, we need to extend the functionality of this meta tag. How do we do that? Remember how we extend the functionality? I'm sure you guessed it right. By giving it an attribute. And the attribute syntax is pretty easy. We're going to open this tag. So this is what we call opening the tag, where we put our cursor inside and we just put a space in there. So now what we're doing is saying, hey, let this have the keyboard that we're going to use is based off of a certain char set. So we're using which is a character set, really. So we're giving it the character set attribute. And remember, an attribute is the name of whatever attribute you're targeting, the equal sign, and the quote, quote. That gives you an attribute. Inside of the quotes is where we want to tell it what attribute we want. And the one that we want is our keyboards that we're using is based off of UTF-8. Now, I'm not going to explain UTF-8 or the char set. There is a lot of information on the internet on this, but it is not an exciting read at all. In fact, it is boring. But if you would like to know and dig in deeper for more information on it, you can get that information off of the W3C schools, and they'll give you some information as well. Okay, so the next thing we want to bring in here is our title tag. And we're going to bring that inside of our head area. So we're going to bring in our title tag. And where we have an open title tag, we must have a closed title tag. So how do I make this a closed title tag? Exactly, put that slash in there. Look at you. I already know you guessed it. All right, so I'm going to hit return right after just to open up this tag. So again, I'm opening up the tag so that I can put some content in between. But before we do this content, I'm going to save. So I'm hitting Control S. If you're on a PC, you would hit I'm hitting Command S or Apple S. If you're on a PC, you would hit Control S to save, or you would just go up here simply to File and then Save. Either way, it's going to work for you. Okay, mine is grayed out because I've already saved. I'm going to refresh. Notice when I refresh, we have this index.html file, and that's pretty much it. There's nothing else to it, nothing else to the name. But watch when we put our title in here, that might change. So let's go ahead and put our title inside of our title area. I'm going to tab in just to show hierarchy. I'm going to paste that, save it. And now pay attention to this area up here. When I refresh it, notice the name changes and it reflects that title. Okay, that's what this title tag does. It gives the information in the tab for you. Pretty cool, right? It is. I know. All right. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set up, let's see, so we have our title. We're going to set up our body area. Now, the body area is everything that you want visible. So notice in our browser right now, there's nothing there. If we want stuff to be visible, we have to have a body tag for it to go inside of. So we're going to hit return after head, and we're going to give it a body tag. Now for every open, we must have a what? You said it, a close. So I'm going to go right on top of the close of HTML. And I'm going to set up that close for the body tag. I like to save often. That's why I like the shortcut keys. So I just hit a Command S on it real quick so that I could save that. All right. So inside of our body area, this is where anything that we type is going to go in there. So if you just do some random texting in here, I also want to show you something else. Notice all my spacing and everything that I'm doing, which is kind of cool. When I save this and we preview it in the browser, Notice it did not pay attention to any of that spacing that we did. The only thing it concerned itself with is one character space. So what it did, instead of breaking the line, is it gave me one character space. Important lesson. The browser doesn't care how much spacing you put in there. It doesn't care how many breaks you put in there. The only thing it sees is, okay, there's some text in here. Let me go ahead and display that. This is why you need markup. HTML is markup language. It stands for Hypertext Markup Language. What it does, pure and simple, is it just puts tag around the information to let the browser know how to display your text, your content, your information. That's it. That is the only difficult part about HTML, is that it's not difficult at all. You're putting tags in so that the browser knows, oh, okay, they want a space there. Oh, okay, they want that to be bold. Oh, okay, they want that to be in the main area. Oh, okay, that's a new section. That's all it concerns itself with. You need the tags to tell it, this is how I want this formatted. All right, so I'm going to delete all that because no one's got time for all that crazy text. All right, and save it, and then refresh, and it should go away. Okay, so inside of our body area, as a matter of fact, let's just go ahead and set up a template, sort of. Okay, so this is kind of different than we did in class, and it's okay. So we're going to make our first div. Okay, so this is our div. Where we have an open, we must have a close, right? So we put our div, and it's best to get in the habit of going ahead and setting up your closing div tags because they're too easy to forget. So once you put an open tag in there, go ahead and set up your close tag. So this is our div. What this div is for, it's going to be for our wrapper. So that means that it's going to be for our entire website. The purpose of a wrapper is the same as when you go grocery shopping, right? So you go grocery shopping and you get all this canned food and you get your meat and you get your produce and you get all of that stuff, right? Well, you put it in a bag because you don't want to carry all of this stuff individually to your car. You put it in a bag. This way you can control that one thing, that one bag, you can carry it out of the store and it contains about 20 or 30 items and it makes it easier for you to take it to the store. Well, this is the same exact thing. A div is an empty box, but if you put it around information, it'll become a container for that information. This way, we can control like the background color of everything without having to do individual ones. We can control certain styles of it, like the size and the width, without having to control every single one. So we're going to make our wrapper div, but just know that a div is just an empty element. It's just a box. A box is a box is a box. The scenario that I'm going to use is we're a moving company. And our job is to stack boxes. Well, what's interesting is HTML. Its job is to stack boxes. That's all it's doing. It's stacking everything that we put in here, every tag. This doc type is at the top. Well, that's going to be the top box. It's HTML. Is next to it. It's going to be the next box. This head is next to it. It's going to be the next box. So it's going in order. If these were boxes, all of these would be stacked up in order. Okay, that's what its job is, to stack boxes one by one. All right, I'm going to save this. Okay, so a div by itself, remember we're that moving company, so a div by itself is an empty box. If we have several divs, that means we have several empty boxes, right? We talked about the functionality of an attribute. We need an attribute here because we need to give this div a label. So what it is right now is it is that brown empty box sitting in your living room. And so we have this moving company, who are us, and our client says, hey, take all the boxes and put them in my house. Okay, so we have all these boxes. They have no labels on them. So we're just going to put them everywhere, all over the house, because we don't know where they go. What do you do when you have boxes what do you do when you're about to move and you need this company and you need boxes to go a certain place? What do? Hopefully, what you answered was when you have boxes that need to go certain places, you put a label on them, right? You put a label on them. So if you have these boxes that you want to go into the kitchen, you're going to put a label on it that says kitchen, and they're going to carry the boxes to the kitchen. So we need a label on this div, so we need to extend the functionality of this div. How do we extend the functionality of a tag? You got it. We need to add an attribute. So right after this div, let's put our space, and we're going to give it the ID attribute. So it's just going to be simply put ID equals and quote, quote. Okay, so this is our attribute. This is extending the functionality of this div. So our attribute of ID equals quote, quote. So now what we want to do is name this, and this could be any name we want. However, you want to make sure that the name makes sense to you in the future if you ever come back to this page. Also, if you ever have somebody else follow you. Okay, so again, the ID attribute is going to extend the functionality of this div tag. So now we want to give it the label. And this again is just like putting that white sticker on the box and giving it the label of kitchen. We want to make this the label of wrapper. So again, this can be any information. It can be anything that makes sense. But again, just make sure it makes sense to the person who's following you, who might pick up this website in about 5 or 10 years and have to create it. Also, you know, our memories don't last forever. So let's suppose you need to redo this website in a few years and you made it the naming so crazy that you don't understand it. You're not really going to understand what's going on. Okay, so we have the div ID of wrapper. So we've given this a label. Another thing that we want to give a label to is this closing div down here, because it just says div. It really doesn't make sense. It's not semantic. So what we need to do is go ahead and add a comment. So a comment is just your left bracket, your exclamation point, dash, dash, oops, hold on, dash, dash, and then your right angle bracket. So what you want to do is after the second dash, this is where you're going to put your comment. And we're just going to say, oh, well, this is wrapper. So that's our comment for it. Save that. Now, we didn't do anything that we're going to see inside of our website yet. But just know that this is wrapper, right? So this is your ID for wrapper. And then we extended the functionality by giving it an ID attribute. And then we have the comment for wrapper, and then we have our wrapper closing there. So far, so good. Okay, the next thing that we want to do is we want to go ahead and set up our information for our header. So I'm going to go, remember I'm just copying and pasting so you guys don't have to sit here and listen to me. Oh, no, I remember. Oh my goodness, I was like, what are we doing? All right, so what we want to do is we want to set up the template first. So before we put any information in here, we're going to set up our structure. All right, so we talked about in class, we talked about the parent-child relationships. So we have wrapper, who's a parent, and then we have header, who becomes the child of wrapper. Now, the relationships with web go no deeper than parent-child sibling. That's as deep as they go. So we have a parent who's a wrapper, header, who's a child to wrapper. Hit return a couple of times because we know we have some stuff going in there. The next one that we're going to set up is we're going to set up our main. Pop quiz. What is main's relationship to header? If you said sibling, you are absolutely right. Now, in between this, though, in between header, we also need to set up our, let's see, so we set up main. We need to also set up, our nav, which is going to come right after header. So I'm going to hit return. I'm going to type nav. Okay, so pop quiz again. What is nav's relationship to header? If you said sibling, you are absolutely right. And then what's main's relationship to nav? If you said sibling, you're right again. Oh my goodness. That means you're smoking. I can leave, and you guys can go ahead and build your own website. Right? Oh, I guess it doesn't work that way. All right. So normally you'd have, so your header, you'd have your nav, you'd have your main, maybe you'd have a section inside of here. Maybe you would also have an aside bar, which we're going to get into as we go through the course. But for now, this is enough to get us started. And again, if you save this and you preview it in the browser, you're not going to see any effect because we don't have any content in here. Remember, with HTML, it is markup. So all we did was we marked up our information right now and we said, hey, we're going to have this wrapper. Well, then inside of the wrapper, we're going to have a header, we're going to have a nav, and we're going to have a main. Okay, and then we're going to close everything. And then everything ends when we get to the end of HTML. So we've just set up the structure, and that's very important. That structure of your HTML document is huge, and you want to make sure that your structure is on point so that when you go to that next step of setting up the styles, your structure can stand on its own. There's another website that I want to show you guys eventually, especially when we get into the CSS portion of our set. Okay, so for now, we pretty much have our very nice or very basic structure for this web page set up. So we're going to save this, and then we're going to, oops, sorry, you have to make sure you're on the right side when you're saving. It was trying to save the browser. So we're going to save this, and then when we come back in our next video, this is when we'll start to put our content inside of our page. Okay, so see you in a few.